Are you a first responder, a veteran, a doctor, a nurse, a teacher, or a Let's Go Blues radio listener? Of course you are. If you're in the market to buy or sell a home, call real estate superstar Mike Burgoyne today at 314-753-4060 or email him at mike@strikewithmike.com to earn special rates today.
A proven winner on the hockey rink, Joe Wolf knows what it takes to be the best. That's why he has the best rates in the area and only has rave reviews of his work with Wolf Power Washing. Get that siding back to its original color with Joe. Call him at 314-420-5434. That's 314-420-5434.
Hi guys, this is Erica Weston with
Valley Sports West.
And you're listening to my favorite St. Louis Blues hockey podcast, Let's Go Blues Radio.
I'm here for it. I'm here for all the hot takes.
I totally see Hoffman putting up 30, 35 goals.
In a 56-game season?
Yeah.
You know, Jeff, you were saying you didn't think he was more 20 goals next season.
I still think
that's a possible.
I mean, I will literally be happy to grab a live crow and eat it if Tarasenko comes back and scores 30, 40 goals in the NHL in a season.
With a last name like Bolduc, he's not going to play for us. There's just something about that last name is not going to make the NHL on this team. And for the Blues, I just don't see it happening. It seems like a name that is not conducive to play in the NHL.
Kurt Price is already making his claim that Zach Bolduc will never wear a Blues jersey in a regular season game.
No.
Hello and welcome to Let's Go Blues Radio, the original and longest-running blues hockey podcast. This is episode number 36 of season 13 and episode number 467 all-time. Support for Let's Go Blues Radio is brought to you in part by Mike Burgoyne of Real Brokerage Realty. Contact Mike at mike@strikewithmike.com or call him at 314-753-4060 and get started selling your current home or buying a new home today. And by Wolf Power Washing. If you're in the St. Louis area and need the services of a professional power washer, Joe Wolf is your guy. Call him at 314-420-5434 and get the best prices in the area. On today's show, I'm joined by listener of the show, Adam Gold. He's a little bit more than just a listener of the show. There's plenty of reason for us to be having this conversation. He is the creator, for those that may not know, of the Gold Plan, which is what the PWHL, the Professional Women's Hockey League, has adopted for their draft strategy. More on that in a little bit, but a very exciting thing for a friend, an actual friend of myself, Kurt, and Bill, to have happen. Years of work. It really goes to show that you put the work in, you put the effort in, you will be rewarded. So, very happy to talk with Adam about his journey to getting his dream realized with a draft strategy being put in place by a professional league created by Adam. Again, more on that in a little bit. Excuse me. Show announcements. So first of all, Stanley Ponder Cup Memorial Tournament. Player signups have begun. We are also taking donations. So if there's something you think that you could raffle off in the raffle that we do during the tournament, we are accepting those. So just get in touch with me in any way you can. For those that may not know, the date and time is November 23rd, 2024. It's at Midwest Sport Hockey in Baldwin, and it benefits Evelyn Parks, daughter of our friend Jake Parks, who was diagnosed with leukemia in late 2023. Player fee is $60, and again, if you are interested in providing anything for donation-wise for us to raffle off and make some extra money, please get in touch with me. You can check out dropinstl.com / just go to dropinstl.com and find the SPMCT tab over on the right, and that'll take you right to the Stanley Ponder Cup information. Anything you need's over there. Roller hockey tournament, bad hockey, a lot of fun. It's going to be a great time. We have a great time with it every year. Well, there was some big Blues news to get to real quick this week. Actually, this was announced literally, what was it, I want to say it was right about the time that I posted our show last week. So that the Blues were going to have a major announcement Thursday morning. So, of course, that happens. Normally if we were live, we would have had speculation. But, obviously with it being pre-recorded, I couldn't even mention it on the show. So this is news for this podcast in particular. But I'm sure most people already know what happened, but just in case you don't, Blues chairman Tom Stillman and president of hockey operations Doug Armstrong announced the succession plan for the next GM. It involves a new contract extension for current president of hockey ops and GM Doug Armstrong, 2 additional promotions, and the naming of the Blues' next general manager, and that is former player Alexander Steen. Armstrong had signed a 3-year extension, which would keep him as president of hockey operations through the 2028-29 season. Steen has been working with the Blues European prospects for the last year, but will now be returning to St. Louis for a bigger role as special assistant to the general manager. Steen will serve in that capacity for 2 seasons, learning the ropes from Armstrong before eventually becoming the 12th general manager in franchise history. Steen becomes the GM after the 25-26 season. At that point, Armstrong will drop the general manager title and serve the remaining 3 years of his contract as president of hockey operations. Steen will be the general manager beginning with the 26-27 season. Also in this, Tim Taylor, who has worked with the Blues since 2011 as the director of player development and most recently director of player personnel, has been promoted to assistant general manager. Taylor will work on the player side of things, while current assistant GM Ryan Miller, no, not that one, will remain to work on logistics such as salary cap implications, contracts, etc. Exciting stuff. I like to see the Blues not only are planning for the future on the ice, they're planning for the future in the front office. That's exciting. You can see a clear plan ahead, which when ask fans of the Cleveland Browns, it seems like year after year everything changes, and I feel like with Armstrong that was actually the case there for a little while. Well, we're a hard hitting team, we're a fast team, we're a skilled team. Every year it seemed like it changed, and so it's nice to actually kind of have some clarity on what's going to be coming down the pipeline for the Blues in terms of the front office. It's a genius play by Doug Armstrong. In his press conference, he said something about how he approached Tom Stillman a while ago at saying, we need to get on getting the next GM, for when I'm out of here. Like, we need to start considering this. And it's a genius plan to me because I think it cements him in a job and sets him up for retirement possibly when he's done at the end of the 28-29 season. This is basically giving him job security to close out his career if he wants. And because if you look at it, if the Blues are awful this upcoming year and they fall back from where they were, and then the rebuild doesn't go the way that we thought it would, and even in 2 years, Stillman's not going to want to make a change because we've got this plan in place. We've already basically announced that Alexander Steen is the GM in waiting. So no matter what, I think Doug Armstrong will be with the Blues until 28-29. And, I mean, I'm not excited. I'm not mad. So, I don't know what I am. I'm kind of in the middle of that aspect of it. But I don't like succession plans in professional sports. I know, again, that it provides you a clear path forward. But for me, it's really tying the owner's hands because he's not going to make a change now. Like, we are locked in until 2030 with what's in the front office right now. And I just don't like that because, again, if this starts going sour and this team starts playing awful hockey, which they did not do last year, but if they start playing awful, Stillman's going to feel like he can't make a change just because this plan is already in place. I mean, what are you going to do? Hire another GM for 2 years and then still give Steen the job in 2 years? Do you name Steen the GM earlier than planned? I mean, there's just too many variables to have such a 6-year plan basically here, and I just don't like it overall. But I'm okay with what's in place right now, and if it works out, it works out. It's just I've seen this before, and I wasn't a fan of it with other franchises. The Blues also announced recently that they signed Scott Perunovich to a 1-year, one-way contract extension worth $1.15 million. Perunovich is 25. He appeared in 54 regular season games for the Blues last season, posting 17 assists and 12 penalty minutes. Perunovich was originally drafted by the Blues in the second round, 45th overall of the 2018 NHL Draft. This is a put-up-or-shut-up move. It is time for Scott Perunovich to prove that he is a full-time, capable NHL defenseman. I liked his game last year. He had some lapses, sure, but again, and I said this a million times on the show, if it's between Perunovich and Tyler Tucker as your sixth defenseman, give me Scott Perunovich all day long. He at least can keep up with the play. He doesn't get walked. Yes, Tyler Tucker is more physical, but he is not a quick skater, and you need at least some kind of elite speed, or long strides like a Marco Scandella. And I don't feel like Tucker really has either of those. So I just think that, and I'm not just dogging Tucker. I'm just saying if that's the choice, give me Perunovich all day. I'm excited to see what he does this year. I hope he scores a goal. I feel so bad for that kid. He's an offensive defenseman who can't score goals. He's great at assists, great passer, and he sets people up like crazy. But, it's just, unfortunately, the guy has not gotten off the schneid in terms of scoring his first NHL goal. We will see it next season. I will make that claim. Scott Perunovich will finally score an NHL goal. Blues also announced development camp plans and dates. It will be held at Se13 Community Ice Center from July 1st to the 3rd. All practices and scrimmages are free and open to the public at Se13 Community Ice Center. This year's development camp will be highlighted by the blue and white scrimmage at 6 p.m. on July 2nd on the USA rink. Prior to the scrimmage, prospects will be available to sign autographs for kids from 4 to 5 p.m. You can look on the website. The Blues have announced, and they've got the whole schedule up when you can go see these prospects play. I know like Dalibor Dvorsky. I'm trying to think of who else. Theo Lindstein. There's a couple other names that you'll recognize that are going to be on those rosters, and there's always a couple that you may not. But worth checking out. It's hockey in July, and it's free. Why not? If you're in the Maryland Heights area, check out Blues Development Camp starting on July 1st. So we will take a break, and when we get back, we will hear from our friend Adam Gold. He wears a great jersey for this interview, by the way. So if you're not watching the video, I recommend you check that out. So you're going to hear from our awesome sponsors here, and then we will get to Adam. You are listening to Let's Go Blues Radio.
We'll return after these messages.
As a hockey player, Mike Burgoyne knows a thing or two about making the perfect play. And when it comes to real estate, he's always ready to score the winning goal for his clients. If you're a first responder, a veteran, a doctor, a nurse, a teacher, or a Let's Go Blues Radio listener looking to score the home of your dreams, you'll receive special rates with Mike. Go ahead, shoot some questions his way, and he'll have the answer quicker than Curtis Joseph on a breakaway.
Curtis Joseph got the paddle down!
Any barriers? Mike will mow them down like Chris Pronger in front of the net. He'll score you your dream home or sell your existing home faster than a Brett Hall one-timer.
Put past the Hall, he shoots, he scores!
See Burgoyne's real estate prowess in action today by emailing him at mike@strikewithmike.com or by calling 314-753-4060. That email again is mike@strikewithmike.com, and that phone number is 314-753-4060. Getting Mike Burgoyne on your team will be the boost your power play needs.
Well, honey, I just priced the power washing for the house, and I think we should just move and condemn this place. It'll be cheaper.
Did you try Wolf Power Washing?
Who?
Oh, I just saw this guy win the Stanley Ponder Cup Memorial Tournament and thought he was attractive, so I looked him up on social media, and it turns out he's the owner and proprietor of Wolf Power Washing. He claims he has the best prices in town.
But does he use non-flammable, non-toxic chemicals that are safe for Wolfie and our son, little Magnus?
Yes. He ensures there'll be no residue left behind, and he doesn't use any volatile vapors.
Well, this fella sounds like a dream. I just wish I knew how to contact him.
Oh, I know how. You can reach him at 314-420-5434.
314-420-5434, and his name is Joe Wolf of Wolf Power Washing?
That's right.
But how did you know his number so quickly?
I'll never tell.
Wait, what?
That's Wolf Power Washing at 314-420-5434. And make sure to tell him Let's Go Blues Radio sent you.
And now, back to Let's Go Blues Radio, the longest running St. Louis Blues podcast with Price, Ponder, and Day.
And we're back from break, and I am joined by... Actually, it's the first time we've ever had a guest that's wearing our jersey, which is awesome. We've got Adam Gold, also known as Winning Unlimited, or Win Unlimited on X. I still say X, and it just feels weird. X or Twitter or whatever you want to call it. Adam Gold's on the show. There's a lot to talk about with Adam. We've talked about him in the past couple months of shows because of what's been going on with his gold plan, the PWHL relation to it. And, of course, as you all probably know, he is a major Blues fan and listens to the show. Adam, thank you so much for joining the show. Good to have you back.
Jeff, I've been so excited about this for so long. This has been my wildest dream come true. And it's just been a real dream to be able to support the Professional Women's Hockey League. There are so many stories that we can talk about for women's hockey and the impact that it has on Blues hockey too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's an impact on all of hockey, not just Blues hockey. You know, I mean, we're seeing the players in the NHL. We've heard a couple of them talk about some of the stuff that's been going on in the PWHL, and it's exciting. I mean, how many records were broken for women's attendance records this past year? I mean, it's a booming business right now, which is fantastic for all of hockey, not just women.
Oh, yeah, definitely. The Battle at the Bell, 21,105, I think, broke the women's hockey attendance record, including Olympics, including college, including any previous professional hockey for women.
Well, I think the most important thing we need to get to, since you're a listener of the show, you actually brought up with me, you asked me what my beer of the show was, and I said, well, I don't normally do it over the summer, but with you on, and it being an evening that we're recording, let's do beer of the episode. So we'll start off with that. Adam, what are you drinking tonight?
I'm drinking from Four Hands Brewing Company, Zest Quest.
Oh, that's good stuff.
Oh, I have not tried it yet. So it's, let's see, this is a lager with lime and salt. Looked like a margarita can. I like it.
Yeah. It's so I had that on tap at Four Hands for the first time, and I liked it. I thought it was really good. You just took a drink. What are your thoughts?
It's pretty good. It's exactly as it describes. Salt with zest and lime. Yep.
Very good.
It's a lager. It's got all those three things.
That's true. All good stuff. For me, I have got a Pilsner tonight. I'm drinking the Parker Pilsner, which is from our friends at Four Hands Brewing. It's made from not from Tim Parker. He's not the one going in and making it himself, but named after Tim Parker from St. Louis City. And when you drink it, it's just one of those beers that you drink. I don't know if you've had it, Adam. It feels like a beer you should be having in a soccer stadium. It's hard to explain other than that. So take a drink. Tell me that that's not how it feels for those of you who are like, what does that mean? Take a drink. I'm telling you, you're going to be like, oh, I should be watching a soccer match right now. It's perfect. So good outdoor beer too. If you've ever, normally Pilsners aren't very good outdoors, but even in the summer heat, this is a great beer to have. So thank you, Four Hands. Sounds like Four Hands should be sponsoring this interview today.
Well, at soccer stadiums, I might need some allergy meds, so we'll see.
True. Good point. So again, Adam, you're not only are you, obviously we got a lot to talk about with the gold plan, the PWHL. But as I said, you're a listener to the show. You're a friend of the show. Myself personally, Bill, Kurt, you met all of us in person. And obviously a big Blues fan. That's how you came to love this show. You were a member of the Let'sGoBlues.com forums years and years and years ago. So, for you, going into this season, and I just kind of want to quickly touch on some Blues talk with you, just again, because I know you're a knowledgeable Blues fan. What are your thoughts going into the summer? What do you see the Blues doing this summer to maybe improve on what they did last season?
I still feel like they're in like a period of mediocrity. Like they're just like very much on the bubble, and they're lucky if they get in. And it's just another season where you're going to have a year of Buchnevich getting burned up, and you have the contracts that are just getting from the older players to the point where they're kind of losing some of their production. We saw a period where Braden Shen went like 20 games or so without a goal, and then he turned it on just after, and then he went cold again. It's going to be consistency that we need from the St. Louis Blues, and we need it every game of the year. It's just such a streaky team.
Yeah, no, that's and so, clearly they picked number 16 in the draft this year. If you listen to next week's show, I'm going to have Mike Morial from NHL.com on to talk about who the Blues may be picking there. But again, their number is 16. They were eliminated from playoff contention after 80 games into the season. So they only had 2 games left after. This is obviously I'm building up to talk about the gold plan. We've talked about it on this show. We've explained it on the show. We had you on, probably 10 years ago to explain what the gold plan was. But in your own words, talking to our audience, please, again, remind everyone, and we'll obviously get into talking about how the PWHL adopted this, but I want you to get initial words on what is the gold plan.
Yeah, the initial proposal was published in the Journal of Quantitative Analysis in Sports in 2010, and it includes mathematical elimination as a factor for determining draft order. The simplest example is that once a team becomes eliminated, their record is reset. Whoever has the best record after their dates of elimination will get the top pick. The teams that are the lowest in the standings tend to become eliminated earlier, and they have more games to earn that top draft pick based on performance after elimination. So instead of awarding teams based on the reverse standings or through a lottery, the idea is you award games to earn the top draft pick by winning it on the ice.
Okay. So explain to me a little bit about, and again, I understand, but I know our listeners may be a little in the dark. So if a team, let's say the Chicago Blackhawks, they were eliminated, let's just say, I don't know the exact number, 65, 70 games into the season. They get eliminated. Blues get eliminated 80 games in. How do you I'm guessing there's a formula you use that would determine, okay, so the Blackhawks went, 7-7 after they got eliminated. The Blues went 1-1. How is that determined that one would get a higher draft pick than the other?
Yeah, so it's based on my first tiebreaker rule is total points after elimination. So if Chicago has, 15 points after they become eliminated, and St. Louis only has 2 points after they become eliminated, Chicago would get a higher draft pick. It's not, let's say, winning percentage. It's total points, then total wins, then you could have total wins, overtime wins, and then overtime shootout wins. You could have all these different tiebreaker rules. The important thing is mathematical elimination is used and is a factor in determining the draft order.
Cool. Again, I mentioned earlier the Blues will be picking 16 in the upcoming draft. Where would the Blues have picked if we had the NHL had adopted the gold plan?
The Blues would have been picking the 12th overall spot. In the actual results for this season, for Chicago, let's say, Chicago would have gotten the first pick. They had 18 games after elimination, and they had 15 points. Whereas the Blues played 2 games, they won one, and they lost one in overtime, so it would have been 3 points, so they would have gotten the 12th pick.
Okay. All right. So interesting how this works. So clearly the biggest reason we're talking here today is because the PWHL, the Women's Hockey League, they did adopt the gold plan, which, obviously I want to talk about. I mean, you've had some really exciting, cool things happen to you the past, I'd say 3, 4, 5 weeks. But just initially, like, how did you hear from the PWHL that they were interested? And honestly, like, go ahead and tell us how they discovered and decided they wanted to go with the gold plan.
Yeah, I got a message from an executive within the league front office through Instagram in January. And I was like, is this real? Because it goes kind of like into a box that's kind of like dedicated on its side, like it could be junk, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like, do you have any jewelry you're trying to sell? It's like right in that same inbox. And so I was like, is this real? Because I didn't know the individual who sent it. And so I researched it, and then I sent like a note by email, and then I got his cell phone number and I texted him. And it was a few days where before I heard back. And so like, I was just so antsy, like I couldn't sit. I was like, is this real? Is it not? I'm just hoping that it was. And then I did hear back, and we just had like a quick meeting, and then we set up another meeting. And then in one of our follow-up meetings, I joined, and it was the commissioner of the league, Jana Hefford, senior vice president of hockey operations, was in on that. And we went through very detailed how the gold plan could work, how the draft order could work. And I was still selling them on the point when they may have already decided at that point before that call that they were going to implement it. And what I found out later is that they had serious considerations for draft order ideas back in November, 2 months before I found out. And they had talked it through with league executives, including the advisory board within the PWHL, which includes Billie Jean King, Alana Kloss, Stan Kasten, and Royce Cohen. And a lot of those individuals are associated with the Dodgers or are just legends in women's professional sports history. They had talked through with general managers and then player council, and they all collaborated on league rules, and one of them was the draft order. And they made the decision to use mathematical elimination as a way to determine draft order and award women for performance on the ice.
Yeah, so obviously the format, for those that maybe don't know or just are wanting more information, 6 teams. They're all owned by the same gentleman. You mentioned the Dodgers owner, Mark Walter. This was a shortened season because they just wanted to kick things off in 2024. They're going to have a full season, first full season next year, starting in October. 24 games inaugural season. There was no divisions, no conferences, and only one league. So it was literally just a 1 through 6. We're going to slot these teams out. 2 teams did not make the playoffs. So once you found out that it was officially the gold plan that they were going to use, and it was announced shortly after publicly, how invested in the season did you become?
Oh, even before that, it was like when I found out through Instagram that this was a candidate model for their draft order, I started following the league as seriously as I could. And I wrote out a very long and very technical white paper that made a lot of predictions on how the seasons could go, even without any games from the PWHL. And so I was making predictions like, if the NHL established a rule where you had similar competitive balance from the NHL, how would the playoffs and how would the draft order look? And then I had all these ideas mapped out. And once I found out, it became like, oh my God, I have to technically implement this. And so I had a lot of opportunity for growth. I was able to subscribe to my own servers, and then I got my own apps, and I built out my own user interfaces and forward-facing league executive user interfaces that I would build out that would give them all of the predictions on demand throughout games, like even in progress. And at any time, if a team became eliminated, they would be alerted. They would know what are the combinations of games that would eliminate teams, what are the combinations of games that would allow a team to clinch. The PWHL has a lot of unique rules, and so I was able to incorporate a lot of those, like the league standings with their 3-2-1 0-point structure, into the app. And I was able to share predictions on any way the season could have gone.
So once you were, again, informed, involved, and watching and paying attention, you and I had many conversations about the PWHL because we were both watching. I had I don't know about you, I had a rooting interest because, again, friend of the show, Amanda Levier. We love Amanda on this show. So I was like, go Minnesota, go. So it was a dream to see them end up winning the thing. But for you, I'm sure you've got somewhat rooting because you're a hockey guy, you're a hockey fan, but you're sitting back, you're watching, you're like, okay, taking in all this information. Did the PWHL kind of stay in touch with you and were like, hey, we need your advice on this because this part of the gold plan doesn't make sense to us? Or were you like actually involved the whole time? Or was it just kind of like, I trust these people to make the right decisions and they're going to make the gold plan look great?
Yeah, for the media executives within the league, I would send out game notes and some important, let's say 3 bullet points on how these games that are played tonight are going to impact the draft, how they could impact the playoff spot, the real talking points or discussion points that could influence the draft order, who picks first, who makes the playoffs, who pushes for that final playoff spot. And then the PWHL also has a very unique playoff structure. They have a pick your opponent. So if you finish first in the league, you can pick any of the 3rd or 4th seeded teams. The second team is safe from being selected, but you can choose who you want to play. And so it's really impactful who finishes with which seed.
Yeah, so, and I'll say for 6 teams, obviously that's exciting, but as this team expands, this league expands, because we know it will eventually, that is going to be really exciting to see down the stretch. And especially, I mean, not just for pick your own opponent, obviously the gold plan, because then you got more teams that are not going to be in contention for playoffs. So the gold plan is going to be ever more impactful for these teams wanting to draft at number 1 or number 2.
Yeah, definitely. When you create, let's say, a virtual environment and you're, let's say, building an NHL 24, a PWHL 24, like a video game, and you're able to simulate seasons, you can look back at each of those seasons and calculate, well, out of each of these seasons, how many times did this event happen where the team that finished with the last record picked first in the model? And based on the naive NHL competitive balance distributions, the number is somewhere in the order of 62% in the league right now. The team that will finish last will pick first in this model almost 2 out of every 3 seasons, which is better than a coin flip. So if you add more teams, will you still continue to get that expectation where the team that's finishing last would have the highest possibility of drafting first? And so you can make up all these assumptions and you can make all these predictions and get an idea on how those probabilities are affected based on league structure.
Yeah, so you mentioned league structure and you mentioned the innovative rules that are in the PWHL. So for the gold plan, which again goes off points after elimination to keep teams competitive, for those who don't know, the point structure for the PWHL, you get, It's 3 points for a regulation win, 2 points for an OT or shootout win, 1 point for an OT or shootout loss, and then obviously 0 points for the regulation loss. Did you have to restructure the gold plan at all because it wasn't just your typical 2 points for a win, 1 point for a tie, shootout, overtime loss? Like, was there any kind of restructuring that had to go into your plan?
I rewrote the entire algorithm for the structure and the requirements of this league. This league had its own different structure. It had its own rules. It had its own tie-breaking formula. And so as I learned about the league, I started to code up everything pretty much from scratch. And I used RStudio for that if anybody's interested.
Okay.
I'm sure that there might be some nerds out there like me who will be interested in hearing that.
I'm all about it, man. I hear about all the crazy platforms that my graphic designers use at work, and I'm always like, please tell me more. I'm a tech nerd. I want to hear more about this crazy stuff. So yeah, and again, you mentioned that you restructured because of the point system, because of the different rules. So does that mean that you have kind of a gold plan structure for all major leagues, like NFL, NBA, anything like that too?
Yeah, for any league, I would be able to create the structure or the draft order based on the needs and requirements of the league. So there could be all kinds of modifications. For example, you could give only the first overall pick to the team that finishes with the best record after elimination. You could give, let's say, the top 3 picks, and that way the team that finishes last is guaranteed at least pick number 4. You can have different rule structures, like instead of just at elimination, we can add in a streak. So if you're eliminated, if you lose to become eliminated, but you were on a 3-game winning streak, you can add that 3-game winning streak in. If you're eliminated with 10 games left, we could double the games and say, let's make it 20. You can have all different types of functions based on elimination. But what I find to be easiest, especially for a new league like this, where you're trying to teach fans the game, whatever is simplest will work best. And it worked exceptionally well this year.
Keep it simple, stupid. I say that at work all the time. Yeah, 100%. So, again, the season rolls on. It's a shorter season, but still, clearly important games going on down the stretch. We're friends on Facebook. I was following, you were posting pretty much daily, like this game's important for playoff contention. This game's important for the first round pick or first overall pick. So officially, the New York PWHL team is eliminated on April 24th. They had 3 games left versus Toronto, Ottawa, and Minnesota. And yeah, so basically, like when you're watching this, and it's been officially not decided, but it's official that New York is out of playoff contention. What does that mean for you, somebody who's really kind of paying attention and trying to keep track of what their chances are for making getting the first overall pick?
I was really excited for the opportunity for women's hockey to demonstrate strengths of competition that other leagues have never been able to demonstrate before. And we saw that. New York won the first overall draft pick. With the 3 games remaining, they were playing Toronto, which was the top team in the league. And then they were playing Ottawa and then Minnesota. Between those 2 games, Ottawa and Minnesota. If Ottawa had won, or if they had even gotten a point, Ottawa would have clinched the playoff spot. If Minnesota had won against New York, Minnesota would have been guaranteed a playoff spot and they would have clinched. New York stopped Ottawa from clinching. They stopped Minnesota from clinching. They have affected change in the playoff structure, and they have brought even more prestige to the Walter Cup.
Yeah. And let's add, too, the fact that not only is this exciting because these teams are all closely matched. So let's not overlook that fact. There wasn't a tanker. There wasn't a Chicago Blackhawks out there. There wasn't a Arizona Coyotes. These teams were all very evenly matched all year, which is why it came down to the wire for the last 2 teams that weren't going to make the playoffs. But second of all, to not only, like we always talk about when the Blues were eliminated, when they used to get eliminated every year early on, I know, Adam, you being a Blues fan as long as you have, you think the same thing. Like, let's play spoiler. Let's, make sure Vancouver doesn't get the number 1 pick or the number 1 seed. Let's make sure San Jose doesn't finish in the top 2 of their division. Like, let's pile up wins against these teams that are going to the playoffs just to give us a little bit of excitement. That still exists here in the PWHL, but you're also playing for something. You're not just playing for spoiler. You're playing because you want your team to improve next season. So there's a lot that goes into these games, and you mentioned it. Huge wins after being mathematically eliminated from the playoffs because these girls want to compete and they want to get better next season by adding somebody important to the roster.
It's important to give credit where it's due. The game where New York clinched the first overall pick was April 30th against Ottawa. New York was down 2-0 after the first period. And then they scored 4 unanswered from Jay Downey-Landry, Ella Shelton, Kayla Vespa, and Elizabeth Jaguar. The team won the first overall pick as a group and earned their next teammate.
That's incredible. So again, we the season ends, playoffs go on. Great work, Minnesota. Congratulations, Lev, and to everyone, all of our members of our team. St. Louis connections, and Nicole Hensley as well for former Lindenwood goalie. But yeah, so playoffs end. Now it's draft time. We had the initial inaugural draft back, I think that was in November. And so that was exciting. But this is the first one where it's like, we've had a season. Now we're drafting because of the standings and what happened in the previous season. You're not just filling out your roster. So that day comes, and you get invited to go up to Minnesota for the draft. So tell me what that was like to kind of know, like, I'm going to be there, and I'm not only going to be in attendance, I'm going to be involved.
Yeah, it was incredible. It was just overwhelming to be able to meet with the individuals in the league who I had been working with very closely over the last few months. Jana Heffert, Burton Lee, and a few others. And to just be able to talk to them and just see them in person and just tell them how meaningful it was for me to be involved and learn about women's hockey and to help support the league just really meant a lot to me. I got a real chance to grow in a lot of ways, professionally too, but then also emotionally, understanding the importance of what this really meant to women and the sport of hockey.
Did you get to meet Billie Jean King?
I did, yeah.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
I'm jealous, man.
I had a brief few moments with her. And when I met with Billie Jean King, I asked her, how many women have shared with you their dreams, their goals, and their legacies? And she responded back. She said, oh, so many. Men too. And I asked if I could share with her mine. She was like, yeah. My wildest dream came true, the draft. And Billie Jean King got an opportunity to recognize New York and the women on the team who earned their next pick, their next teammate, Se13. There were a lot of firsts that were set from this draft, specifically for professional sports across all sports. This is the first time that an ethical draft order like the mathematical elimination draft order idea had been used, and it worked exceptionally well. And we were able to recognize that New York was going to get the first pick. And it was the first time that it was ever used, and women demonstrated that it works. Women held themselves accountable and were able to meet the requirements for overcoming adversity under real serious consequences of losing the first pick and win those games to get that new prospect.
Yeah, Se13, obviously a heck of a hockey player. If you look up her stats, just unbelievable that, she's going to be, again, you mentioned New York earned the opportunity. It wasn't just we finished last and, all these players that are here last year, they're not going to be here next year because we're going to have a huge turnover. That's probably not how this is going to work. There's going to be a lot of those same players. Most of that roster will probably be returning, and they add one of the greatest young players in women's hockey. So they're going to be vastly improved just from that alone. Plus, again, there's only 6 teams, so there's only 6 picks in the first round. So then you're coming back and drafting another great player in the second round and another great player in the third round. And it just keeps building on itself. And obviously all the other teams are improving too, but it just goes to show that this wasn't a shot in the dark PWHL first season. This is only going to get better. The league is only going to improve over time because there are, and we saw it on this show, Alabama women's hockey. Unbelievable what these women are doing, how they're able to step in, create teams, and shine and play great. And that's what we're going to be seeing here as these teams continue to improve over time.
Blues fans can really relate to the development of the women's hockey through maybe a player like David Perron. When he first came on the Blues, he would wear the white skates and he would get the the commentary from Andy Murray back when he first started, back when the Blues drafted him in 2006, right? In 2007. And then we saw him progress and we saw him mature and eventually win a cup here in St. Louis after his third tour of duty, right? Well, the women's game is accelerating, but at a much faster pace. in some of the first games, you would see a lot of goals that might be from turnovers or bouncing pucks. And the style of game really cleaned up to the point where you would have overtime games where you might go 3 or 4 periods of overtime and there wouldn't be a goal. Aaron Frankel went 7 periods of overtime and didn't let anything in. From The Athletic, Haley Salvian would ask Aaron Frankel questions like, what's it like to be the Green Monster? And he called the Green Monster from Coach Amanda Kessel. And so you would see the coach and the goalie, Aaron Frankel and Amanda Kessel, kind of exchange looks and smiles at each other about what it's like for the hockey to progress at that pace, at that rate. And then you were mentioning the players for the University of Alabama. The women's hockey team was just started there. And there's a lot of grassroots women's hockey that's really picking up because of the PWHL.
Oh, yeah, 100%. I'll tell you right now, friend of ours, Jason Miller, crappy goalie, as he's known on the show, his daughter is obsessed with the PWHL. She was already playing hockey, but now she's even more interested just because of the rise of this league. And it's like, I can't miss a game because this is so good. And we talked about it on the show that, there's a lot of naysaying about women's sports, which I think we both can disagree wholeheartedly with.
Right.
They are hitting. I mean, they're fast. They're just as quick as the NHL to me. I mean, we saw Kendall Cohen-Schofield match everyone in the skills competition with her speed. Like, it's ridiculous to see. Like, it is good, exciting, thrilling hockey. And I just love every aspect of it. And the fact that it's growing the way it is incredible. I mean, I'm seeing more women play now than I ever have. I mean, I played last night against a woman on a men's team who said that she had just started a couple years ago. So yeah, seeing it grow the way it has, it's such an exciting time for women's hockey.
Yeah, and it's being represented very well by some exceptional athletes. Jana Hefford, the senior vice president of hockey operations, she holds 5 Olympic medals, 4 gold for Canada. And it's being represented by Alana Kloss, a tennis legend, and then Billie Jean King, who's been an icon in sports and education equality and activities from the Title IX passing in 1972. And 52 years later, she's still innovating and she's still changing the face of sports, professional sports, and women are leading.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. So again, back to kind of you and your journey with the PWHL. Again, you go to the draft, you meet Billie Jean King, which is so cool. And you meet, obviously, there's a ton more people we can mention that I'm sure you met. But, a lot of great people in the PWHL and people involved in women's hockey. But not only that, and we played the clip last week, you got to make a selection for New York, the team that won the gold plan. What was that like? And did you get a chance to speak with the draft pick? Number 25, first pick of the 5th round.
Yeah. So going in, I didn't know exactly which pick I was going to be able to announce, other than it was probably a New York pick that I was going to get. And with the gold plan, the team that wins that plan gets the first pick in every round, first, second, all the way through to the 7th. And so you can go from drafting 1-7 to 2-8 and so on. And it can have a big difference throughout the entire draft. Like, that's 7 picks that you could, let's say, lose in your favorite player for, dropping down in terms of your preference. But I think Blues fans are going to find a real strong connection. With the 25th pick of the draft, PWHL New York selects from Yale, L. Hartje. Yale has an incredible history of women's hockey, which we'll get into.
Mm-hmm.
L. Hartje scored at a pace of about 2 points a game. She played in all 33 games for them last season as a senior, and she was scoring at a pace of about 2 points a game. She is an incredible scholar in academics. She has a 3.92 GPA, and she was the captain of the Yale team, and she helped them with the development throughout the entire year. She was with them for a few years. And in that time, she also committed a lot to community service. And she won a very special award, the Mandy Schwartz Athlete Scholar of the Year for 2024, recognizing a player who was exceptional in athletics and in academia. And I wished going in that I had known that about Elle Harchie. I wish I did. But I found out later after the draft, there was a great podcast from Chris Sinclair that we can post with a reference where she discusses her involvement with contributions to the community and specifically partnering with other Yale student athletes with the women's hockey and the football team at Yale, and collecting samples for bone marrow transplant donor matches so that whatever diseases somebody's facing that was similar to Mandy's situation would be potentially cured. It's a shame that we couldn't find a match for Mandy.
Yep, that's unfortunate. And obviously that was a story that really did captivate Blues fans, as Jaden obviously changing his number to Mandy's number, and obviously they were a very close hockey family. So losing Mandy was a very sad moment in sports, but you see her legacy live on with players from like Elle Harchie, who is, again, she was the Scholar Athlete of the Year 2024, named after Mandy Schwartz, that award is. And just, seeing, and that's the thing that I always say, and not to get too personal, but, people might also know Adam Gold from being a player in the Stanley Ponder Cup Memorial Tournament. So yeah, I mean, it's to me, like, that was the thing I wanted. I wanted my father's name to live on in an important way and still have that legacy. And I think that we're seeing that now with Mandy Schwartz and a player like Elle Harchie, who is living the life that someone like a Mandy Schwartz would have wanted somebody to live. And again, not only a great athlete, I mean, incredible athlete. The fact that let's not even overlook the fact that she was the first pick of the 5th round and she was a 2-point per game player. That's crazy. But yeah, she's sounds like an extremely incredible person as well, which is what you want in your players as you're drafting.
Yeah, absolutely. With the selection, I wasn't involved in who was selected. I understand that from some other mock drafts, Elle might have gone higher, and New York is lucky to have her. But talk about the depth of the players and the prospects within this draft. For Elle Harchie to go, I thought late 5th round, 25th overall. I had no idea that a quality of person was even available at that late of a game, or at that late of the draft. And New York's very lucky to have her. And it is, a hope that I would have where New York would be able to participate in maybe a neutral site game where they would be able to play in the Enterprise Center here in St. Louis. There were neutral site games in, let's say, Pittsburgh and then Detroit, and New York didn't have a chance to participate in that. Maybe the best case scenario is there's a neutral site game at the Winter Classic. We can, I'm just speculating. I don't know for sure. I don't know any of these details, but how amazing would it be if the PWHL was able to have a game in Chicago just before the Blues and Chicago play, or just after the Blues and Chicago play? I would be much more interested in that game. And if Elle Harchie's there, we have to share her story about how she's a wonderful, terrific young woman who's trying to make a career, who had a dramatic impact and influence on the memory of Mandy Schwartz. And then we just had Father's Day, and Mandy's father, Rick, we also are thinking about him.
Right, of course. Yep. He was recent. I think it was this past season. Unfortunately, we lost Rick Schwartz. But yeah, you mentioned New York being a good team that they could play at Enterprise at a neutral site game, or in Chicago. Give me Ottawa too.
Yeah,
they've got some St. Louis connections. Jinsey Dunn, friend of the show. Jinsey plays for them, as well as Lauren McInnes. Yes, Al McInnes' daughter. She was, I remember at the end of the PHF, she was actually drafted by the Buffalo team. And I was like, Buffalo Buttes, you got a new fan here. And, unfortunately the league folded, but now she's with Ottawa. And, it's going to be, that's a fun thing. I don't know how often those two play together, but Lauren McInnes and Jinsey Dunn on the Ottawa team. So that's fun to look out for if fans are in St. Louis or maybe trying to decide which team to pick. I think Ottawa is a good one to follow.
Yeah, definitely. If Ottawa and New York, which were the two teams that missed the playoffs,
they
picked 1 and 2. If they ended up playing in St. Louis or at a neutral site game like the Winter Classic, it would be incredible for Blues fans. They would have a real connection between those two teams. And then I'd also like to mention that with Al McInnes being a huge Blues fan, back in 2008 when this idea was conceptualized, I knew that I had to take action on it and publish it and put it out there when Al McInnes was on the draft lottery show. Al McInnes was the Blues representative when the Blues were awarded the 4th overall selection, Alex Pietrangelo, back in 2008. And
not an important draft pick at all, by the way.
Well, everybody wanted Steven Stamkos, right? Everybody was like, oh, we've got to get the number 1 pick. Like, we got to get him. But I remember the disappointment on Al McInnes' face when he learned that the Blues would not be getting that first pick and they'd be staying at 4. And I didn't want anyone else to feel that embarrassment of being on live TV like the NHL Network or in this draft lottery and seeing the disappointment of not getting that random chance and that random selection. I think that this is a way for resolving that where Lauren won't have to go through that, or any other individual associated with the Professional Women's Hockey League will have to go through that. Can you imagine if Billie Jean King didn't get an opportunity to recognize New York for their accomplishments and a random lottery selection was demonstrating who would pick first, and we diminished the value of the goals from New York and their wins against Ottawa and Minnesota? Here we can recognize women, their accomplishments, and reward them.
I think that's the best part for me, honestly, is that we're celebrating. Like, and for me, how many times do we see fans? We saw fans saying it this year about the Blues. I wish they would just lose every game so we got a chance to pick number 1. First of all, we say that on the show, and I think, Adam, you agree, rooting against your own team to lose is just weird. But with the gold plan, you are always rooting for wins, no matter who you are. So, like, your team might get eliminated, let's say in, maybe they're real bad, eliminated at the end of February, beginning of March. You're still paying attention through April because you're like, oh my gosh, now it's time to start winning games, guys. Like, let's start winning and get that number 1 pick. And again, you're not only coming out of the season saying, oh, well, hey, we got the first pick. That's great. You're also saying, how amazing was it to see these guys or these women come through and play good hockey after they're eliminated, after you don't have a chance to win the championship. They still played hard. We can celebrate that OT goal that person scored in April, even after we were eliminated. You can still remember that as a great moment in your team's history. That, to me, is what makes the gold plan great.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. You're going to have incredible memories. You don't have to be a playoff team to have really competitive games to grow your team. Let's say you have that scenario where you're eliminated sometime around February. Let's say that's sometime around January even. The idea would be that a fan could look at the calendar and see all the games that are being played. And you could ask a fan, which games do you want to win? And they want to say all of them. There's not a game that I don't want them to win. They would be able to look at the calendar and say, well, these are all important games. I understand that some fans might want a team to try to become eliminated, but what happens in those scenarios is you're going to fail. It's so hard to shift a team's focus from not playing as best as they can to trying to play as hard as they can. Just before the International Ice Hockey Federation break, New York beat Boston. Boston was the most likely team to be able to steal the pick from New York. And then after the break, Boston came back and turned it on. Like, Boston fans, some of them might have had the idea that it might have been a good idea to start losing to try to get eliminated and steal the pick from New York. But the exact opposite happened. Boston turned it on. They won a lot of their final games, and they ended up passing Ottawa and taking that final spot from Ottawa. It is much more impactful to win those games, even on the verge of elimination, rather than trying to lose to become eliminated and start winning games. It's going to be so hard for teams to turn that corner and change the paradigm within the locker room.
Well, as you said, you know, for those that might say, like, well, then so maybe we should root for if let's say the NHL goes under the gold plan, you know, then maybe fans will start, oh, well, we should just try to get eliminated sooner and then rack up the wins. That still doesn't even guarantee you the number one pick. Just because you're eliminated in January and you got more wins than anyone else because you were eliminated longer doesn't mean you automatically get the number one pick still. So it still is just, you know, play your heart out for 82 games or however long your season is. And if you're eliminated, don't give up. Keep playing hard. And that is, I think, the key behind your plan. If you don't mind me speaking for the gold plan, I think that's what the key is: competitiveness.
Yep, absolutely. No, you're absolutely right. And you're free to, you know, come up with your own ideas too, like in your own interpretations. Like, that's what's so great about it. You can choose how you want to perceive it. I think that the feedback that I've gotten has been very positive from how it worked in the Professional Women's Hockey League. I haven't seen any comments suggesting that another team should have selected first. I think it was almost universally agreed upon that it was New York's first overall selection.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Very exciting. And Adam, so going forward, you know, I know that clearly, you know, this was a success for the PWHL. It looks great. Again, they've been innovative, not just with this rule, but so many other, the jailbreak rule, which I think is great. For those who don't know what that is, it's if you score a shorthanded goal, it's a jailbreak. Your player comes out of the box, which is, I love that. I think that's, again, it encourages competitiveness. So all these types of rules, all these changes we're seeing to the game because of the PWHL and the success that they had in their first season and will continue to have, let's face it. Do you foresee, you know, and I know that, you know, there's probably some things you might need to keep under the cuff, but do you foresee a league maybe looking at the PWHL's model and saying, and maybe it's not just hockey, but, you know, basketball, football, baseball, this is working for them. Maybe we need to look into doing something like the jailbreak or like the gold plan.
The Sports Business Journal awarded the PWHL with the Breakthrough League of the Year. If other leagues are not looking at the PWHL, seeing what their rules are, and thinking through how those rules, the new rules, the innovation within the PWHL would affect other leagues, they're going to be behind. With the PWHL, there's a lot of competition around the time when they have their final games of the regular season and then their playoffs. Let's kind of go through it a bit. You have the NHL Stanley Cup final, or the NHL Stanley Cup playoffs starting up. You have the NBA playoffs. You have Major League Baseball starting up. You have the NBA draft. You've just gone through March Madness. There's a lot that's happening in professional sports, and women deserve a piece of that, okay? And they deserve as much of it as they can get. So you need to have some sort of a strategy for how you're going to earn fan appreciation and their time and their support, right? So with this idea for the draft order, you're going to have a compelling reason for why fans should remain interested in women's hockey, even if the Islanders are playing Carolina and it's game 5 and it's Ottawa versus New York for the first overall pick. You want those fans to be at least switching the channels or at least staying engaged with the New York team. And so I think that this plan helps accomplish that.
Yeah, 100%. Again, I case in point, me. I was like, okay, New York has a chance for the number one pick tonight. What was that game? April 30th when they clinched it. I turned that on. I was like, normally I wouldn't care because New York's out of the playoffs, but I turned it on. So I'm like, they could clinch it tonight. And I watched that game and was like, And they were, like you said, they were down 2-0 to Ottawa. And I thought, oh, they're not going to do it. They did it. And it was exciting. And it was like, for me, like, again, I'm a Minnesota fan for obvious reasons, but I was rooting for New York. I'm like, yeah, go New York, win, get that number 1 pick. Yeah. Like, it was really cool to see.
Yeah, I'm rooting for everyone. I really want to see the league grow. I want to see actually a lot of teams have fluctuation. I want to see the competitive balance. I want to see that players everywhere have a chance to help fulfill their dreams. How many young girls are there in New York who deserve to see the Walter Cup come through, right?
Yep.
Or Ottawa or Boston. Every team has young girls who have dreams too. And with the way that this league is maintained with their competitive balance, you don't have teams that are, let's say, going through a rebuild. Can you imagine if that happened after 1 year? They just went through a draft. Like, it's not happening, right? So this is a plan or a strategy where teams who are the lowest in the league or falling in the final spot in the standings can still be marketable, and they can still have that winning culture to help elevate them even further the next year. How quickly can Sarah Fillier come in and start scoring? I don't know how effective she'll be her first year. She'll be much more dominant in her second and third year, but her first year, I think that there might be a learning opportunity for her. There's not an expectation that she's going to have to come in and really be that key difference that's going to drive them into the playoff spot. There's a lot of other players who are going to be coming in and supporting New York. There's going to be a lot of incoming talent, and they'll have that, let's say, opportunity to introduce adversity to the other teams. And that introduction of adversity is going to really shuffle those teams potentially every year. And you're not going to see those dominant teams reproducing and dominant, or the teams that are towards the bottom tend to be at the bottom. There's going to be shuffling. There's going to be player redistributions through free agency. It's going to be a really exciting time for women's hockey. Anyone can win this league.
Yeah, and I think that's the beauty too. You mentioned it, how they, this is a new league, so you don't have your clear-cut top 2 teams and then clear-cut bottom 3 teams. These are all evenly matched teams. We could see a complete topsy-turvy of the standings from last year. Minnesota doesn't make the playoffs, and they just won the championship. So you never know, because these teams are so evenly matched. All the more reason to pay attention to the PWHL next season and beyond, because right now it is competitive, good hockey every single game. And that first season was incredible. Just so much fun to watch, and just not a negative thing to say about the product I saw from the PWHL.
Oh, it was absolutely exceptional. I just think through all the Trailblazers who I know that we would all wish we had an opportunity to see play professional hockey. And the draft was so important for the PWHL this year. For the first time really in women's hockey league history, women were chosen to go to teams based on their skill and their talents, and not necessarily just because of how close they lived to the city. You could actually afford relocation and wages that were competitive, that would allow these players and afford them an opportunity to go and play for any of the city that selected them.
That's true. Adam, again, I've mentioned you're a friend. Always love catching up with you, talking with you, learning from you, honestly, just because you have such an analytical, mathematical mind that I actually just told somebody the other day that I think I celebrated harder when I finished my last math class than when I actually graduated college. So for me, like, talking to you and learning from you about this stuff is so exciting, and I know a lot of our fans agree. I just want to thank you for, putting the work in behind the gold plan, and I just want to say congratulations to you for the fruits of your labor finally paying off. Because, again, I've known you for a long time, and I know you put a lot of work into this, and it's finally paid off, and we're seeing how great this idea was. So thank you on behalf of the hockey community.
Oh, thank you, Jeff. Yeah, I'm really excited for the hockey community. I'm really excited for women's hockey. I'm excited for the opportunities that they'll have, and I'm just so proud to be able to help serve as an advocate for new ideas, new innovation, and the role that data science will play in bringing quality to hockey.
Awesome. Adam, I want to give you a chance, too, for anybody who might be interested in reaching out to you, whether it's social media, anything else you'd like to promote where people can find you, talk with you, ask you questions about the gold plan, whatever. I want to give you that time now. So anything you'd like to promote?
On Twitter, on X, you can find me at Win Unlimited. And on Wednesday nights at 10 p.m., you'll be looking for my children.
Nice. Very nice. And then again at 11, you know?
Yeah.
Adam, thank you very much. We'll be in touch, the show at least. I mean, you and I always are. But we'll be in touch about watching the gold plan. Might have to have you on more regularly to talk about it. And hopefully we'll see future leagues adopt this as well. Thank you very much for coming on today, and thank you for being such a loyal listener and for wearing such an exceptionally beautiful jersey tonight.
Oh, my God. Thank you for having me, Jeff.
Of course. Well, big thanks goes out to Adam Gold again for coming on, and a huge congratulations to our friend who, again, just goes to show. Put the work in. People will notice, and it took a while, but very happy for Adam. He worked hard at this. Next week we'll probably be previewing the episode much earlier than usual because we're gonna have Mike Morial of NHL.com. He is the co-host of the NHL Draft Class podcast, and he is one of their lead draft writers. Mike has been on the show a couple years in a row now, and so it's kind of become tradition that he comes on right before the draft, and we talk about who the Blues could pick, the top picks in the draft, what kind of players they are, and then just anything else that comes up about maybe some Blues prospects and stuff. But Mike has become a good friend of the show, so this is his third time on, and I'm excited to share that interview with you guys. As I said, I'm going to post it earlier just because I want to get draft coverage out as quick as possible since we've already done the interview. So we'll probably post this actually on Sunday or Monday of next week. So we'll get next week's episode out much earlier to prepare us for the draft, which is the following weekend. So that'll do it. Support for Let's Go Blues Radio is brought to you in part by Mike Burgoyne from Real Brokerage Realty. Email him at mike@strikewithmike.com today for all your home buying and selling needs. That's mike@strikewithmike.com. And by Wolf Power Washing, St. Louis's premier power washing company with the best rates in town. Call Joe Wolf at 314-420-5434 and get the best looking and greatest power washer in the area. That's 314-420-5434. That will do it for episode 35 of season 13 of the original St. Louis Blues Hockey Podcast, Let's Go Blues Radio. Thank you so much for tuning in, and have a great week, everyone. For Kirk Price and Bill Day, I'm Jeff Ponder, and we'll talk with you next week. This was Let's Go Blues Radio. Until next time, everyone, let's go Blues.
The Chiefs are at home tonight against Cyanosport at the War Memorial at 8. Good seats are still available.
A look at sports.
I think that went very well.
Thank you for listening to Let's Go Blues Radio. Now take off, hosers.
I want you to have a heart attack and die so that we never have to do this shit again.
Well, there's 90 minutes of your life you'll never get back. Sorry.
St. Louis Blues, St. Louis Blues. Have you heard the news about our St. Louis Blues? They've only just begun, they're on their way to number one. Now there's no more blues for our St. Louis Blues. The Blues are on the ice tonight again. They're rough and tough and got the stuff to win. They'll always get one more, no matter what the score. They are quite a hockey team, my friend.